Today on Technado, we'll be talking with Sara Haggard about her tribute app for mentors. We're also going to be looking at all the news coming out of Black Hat and DEF CON and a new version of Red Hat. That's all coming up on Technado, starting right now. Hello and welcome to Technado. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, joined as always by Don Pizzette. How you doing, Don? I look at Justin. No, that's Justin.
Like, Don Pizzette. Whoa,
Don,
you look
Justin,
different, Don.
So, yeah, we kind of played a little musical chairs, you know, when you've been out of town for a little bit.
Oh,
so.
we did do that, yeah.
Well, you said you're here as always with me, but then all of a sudden I'm not here. You can't have it both ways.
That's just what I say.
Justin's here also.
Yeah. I did say that. Yeah, and there's Justin, too. Yeah, I know that you don't acknowledge the people.
Hello, everybody.
There you go.
I wave at them.
This is the People's Podcast. Yeah.
And on the People's Podcast today, we've got a lot of news to get to. We also have an interview that's coming up a little bit later with Sara Haggard. She created an app called Tribute. It is about mentorship, not just in IT, but in a lot of fields. But it's a really cool app. She's got some history at Microsoft as well, so we'll have a cool talk in a little bit. Hey, if you're at home playing along with us with Buzzword Bingo, you can head over to go.itpro.tv/buzzword-bingo and pull out your card here, and when we say things, you can check them off, and when you win, you can let us know on the Twitters or whatnot that you got bingo, and we will scream it as well if we get it here.
Well,
but all we have so far is the free square in the middle, Technado.
And if you're listening to this while you're driving, have your passenger play Buzzword Bingo. We don't want to be responsible for that.
Or, try to put it in autopilot. Future is now.
No.
The future is now.
Liabilities
looking
everywhere.
just at these headlines, we're going to, someone's getting bingo early today. So speaking of headlines, let's get started with the news. The first article from ZDNet.com. Final Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7 version released. Red Hat has just released Red Hat Windows. It's the same thing. They just said it twice. I typically read the sub-headline, but it's like they just ordered the words differently.
It is a little bit different, right?
They say 7.7.
Right. So Red Hat 8.0 came out a little bit earlier this year, and so obviously that's what Red Hat wants you to run, or Red Hat now owned by IBM. But they continue to support version 7, and actually version 6 is still under support too. But as is their release cadence, eventually they flag one as being the official last version. So 7.7 is the last version of the 7 line. And that just means no new feature updates. They'll continue doing security updates for about 5 more years. So you're perfectly safe running 7. It's just there won't be new features. New features will only be added to version 8 at this point.
Okay, so let me understand this, because I've never thought about it this way. But like when Windows comes out with Windows 10, obviously they're still providing patches and things to Windows 8, and we talk about they're end of lifing, XP or whatever that is. Do the version numbers change then on Windows 8 as they release a patch or something?
Yeah, so there's like these long version numbers. It's called semantic versioning, ideally, where you have like a major version, a minor version, and then patch versions. And then usually most of the time in large, like Windows 10, you're not going to see a lot of those numbers.
But would you see you've got the major and the minor. So 7 is the major, 0.7 is the minor. It would change.
So Microsoft used to do that, and then they switched, and now they do build numbers. So if it's Windows 10, it's like technically 10.0, and then they do a point followed by another number, which is actually like the number of days since Windows 1 came out or something. Jeez. Yeah, it's weird. So you'll see. Well, actually, they changed that too, because now it's like the 1903 build was March of 2019. They've kind of
but then there's like
around.
a subsequent set of numbers after that, isn't there? 1903, and then there's like a dot, blah, 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 blah. I could be wrong. I don't use Windows. You don't use Windows, so I'm just...
So I'm running, right now, mine is Microsoft Windows version 1903, and then it says OS build 18362.239, and so that's, the 18362 must be the number of days.
You're like one of those people that could look at like a VIN number and go, that means that was made at the Detroit plant, and it's got the small block, and...
Like on a Hyundai, if the VIN number starts with a K, it was made in Korea. And,
There you go.
I like the standard semantic versioning, though. Major, minor, patch.
Yeah,
because then I'm like, major, there's new things and possibly breaking
That's what just
changes.
confused me that you said, hey, we've got 8.0 now, and then they launched 7.7. So
When does the maintenance phase, is that 5 years after the initial release, or is that at the 10 years for Red Hat?
So Red Hat's a little bit different because they pick whenever they want. They say they'll do 10 years of support on any release, right? But they don't say when it's going to switch from like full development into, because it's, Windows, you used to not know, are they going to do a new version every 3 years? Is it going to be 5 years? You didn't know how long it would be. That's how Red Hat still is. Versus
Microsoft had no idea how long it would be.
yeah. Well, versus like Canonical with Ubuntu, where it's every 2 years you will get an LTS.
Mm-hmm.
So you know when they're going to switch. But with Red Hat, they kind of keep it up in the air.
Interesting. All right. So anything, I mean, like you said, if you should be running 8, or that's what they want you to be running. So this is not a huge update.
Right. Well, the key takeaway here is you don't have to upgrade to 8 if you don't want to. But if you're waiting for some new feature to come out in 7, it's not going to happen, right? All the new features have been introduced by 7.7. And so after that, you got it. You'll get security updates. You'll get bug fixes, but no new features. And that's a big deal for people who are hoping that like Python 3 would be set as the default version as opposed to Python 2. Not going to happen in 7, but it has happened in 8. So
It's funny, 7.7, they actually changed that.
no way.
Yeah, it says
Did I
in this
miss
article.
that?
Yeah, Python 3.6 is a standard interpreter because that's what I look for.
Oh, so they snuck that in there as a last 7.7 last
yeah,
time.
because 2020, January 1st, supposed to be end of life for 2.7.
And if it's still going to be there a long time, they'd have to do that.
Yeah, but I remember in some of my government contracting, we were using like Python 2.5, but it was on Red Hat Linux 5, and they were paying for additional contract. It was a nightmare. Not what I would recommend. So I went through here looking for the Python one, and I was like, all right, they're using Python 3. Good to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the key takeaway, don't download 8. 7.7 is the way to go.
Yeah, and don't skip the end of the article where they talk about Python.
Technado recommended. I just read the headlines, so I didn't know there was stuff under the pictures. All right, on our next one, reseller.co.nz. So all the reseller news from New Zealand. Symantec sells enterprise security for $10.7 billion to Broadcom. Decides to divest the business after, quote, better than expected quarter. So get out while the getting's good, I guess, is the takeaway.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing that. Anytime somebody's successful around here, I'm just going to like sell them, I guess.
Hey, you had a great day yesterday. You are fired, but you went out on top.
And by fired, this person acquired you.
Yeah, we traded
for $2 billion.
That was a Seinfeld. The Yankees traded George to a chicken company.
To a chicken company.
It was.
I don't know why that strikes me so funny.
Yeah, they had a
ridiculous
deal with the Yankees.
Right.
Official chicken supplier, I believe. But I digress.
Yeah.
So this headline caught me by surprise because I've never heard of Symantec selling off any part of their business. Usually Symantec is an acquisition machine. They acquire tons of companies and then do absolutely nothing with them. I've often called Symantec the place where software goes to die because they'll acquire things and then like literally the software just remains unchanged for year upon year. But in this case, apparently their security business is doing well, so they sold it off probably because they just don't know what to do. It's selling a lot. People are going to expect new updates and features, and they're not really.
They're
built
like,
for
we
that.
got to get out before like stuff starts breaking.
People expect us to do something.
Are there lemon laws about that? If you're like, oh, here's this enterprise security business, it's fine. It only has 2,000 miles on it. Come to find out, they ran the odometer backwards. I actually got a little confused about this because I was like, isn't that what they do? But they're talking about the enterprise security segment, and there's a quote in here. Norton LifeLock addresses consumers' issues, and that apparently is doing very well. Is that, you suspect, any way related to all the other shenanigans and breaches that are occurring? Because isn't LifeLock about identity protection?
Yeah. And, LifeLock, multiple times, they've been cited by the SEC or whatever for making false claims. So they've been in trouble on a few occasions. The CEO used to drive the truck through town with his social security number.
I knew that
on
was
it.
going to come up, until
then
he got hacked finally.
Yeah, well, he had like over 100 cell phone accounts. So LifeLock would, sure, nobody could get a mortgage with your number, but they could get a Boost mobile phone. So, yeah, he regretted that one. But yeah, it's hard to say. I remember, though, we used to use a product called BindView CC, and it was awesome because it could monitor your compliance across all your machines. So if somebody added a user account to the administrators group, you would immediately know and it would revert it back. And Symantec bought that, and that was part of their enterprise security suite. They had a whole collection of software, and it just never changed. It just year after year, it was the exact identical product, and I guess it just did its job, and now they've sold that off to Broadcom, which I also thought was odd because Broadcom mostly does hardware. None of this is hardware, so I guess Broadcom is getting a little more broad in their focus.
Ooh, nice.
Oh,
Nice. And my favorite part about this article is as you scroll down, the little red bar in the top shows you how far you've gone in the article.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
They're tracking you, Peter.
That's
You
about
should
the
stop
coolest
doing it now.
I've ever seen. But look, I got to get all the way.
Why would you want that?
Because like, how much more do I
Oh,
know?
wait a minute. It's
no,
an
it's an auto-scroller.
infinite.
Yeah.
It's an infinite feed.
So, all right, I didn't have time to get an article on this. I saw the news
Start
blurb
again.
just this morning that a senator has introduced a bill here in the U.S. to make it illegal to
We
have
talked about that.
endless scrollers.
I believe this is one of the things we covered when you were gone. Because
Did I miss on that?
It was endless scrollers and snap streaks. Remember we had to look that
No,
up?
he was here.
Snap streaks. We talked about snap
Yeah, because
streaks.
it was the same legislation for snap streaks, where you Snapchat so many days in a row.
And autoplay videos.
I've never heard of Snapstreak before
No,
this
he
very
wasn't here. It was
moment.
Daniel. Daniel said it.
It was Daniel. That's right.
Yeah, so it was.
It's
I
always
don't know what a
uh,
Snapstreak is.
It was videos that autoplay with sound.
Okay.
I
I get that.
It was infinite scroll like this.
What is wrong with an infinite scroll? I don't follow.
It's addressing. I think it's supposed to be addressing features that
Are
are
addictive.
intentionally addictive.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't about,
Maybe not necessally to everybody,
Okay.
but to certain individuals.
And so
All
snap
right.
streaks. I looked up and I said, well, this can't be what snap streaks mean. It's how many days in a row I have like sent a Snapchat message to Justin. He sent a snap back to me. That's a snap streak. And so it's about addictiveness because you see, oh man, I've got this going for 10 days. I got to keep this going.
All right.
I feel compelled to say that will never happen.
Yeah.
Number
He will
two,
not answer any of my
when we
snaps.
looked it up, you know what you get for snap streaks?
Nothing.
Like emojis.
Oh, gotta have a.
They're like, man, you got 4 smileys.
Oh man.
All
I'm
right,
like,
well,
woo.
I don't want to rehash last week's podcast episode just because I apparently didn't listen to it. But
Yeah, you were on a plane for 4 hours on the way back. You couldn't pop in the old
I
earbuds
didn't
there
have
and
in-flight Wi-Fi. I was on Southwest.
listen to what we did. Yeah, you can.
I was lucky to have a chair.
Shots
download
fired.
what we did
It was an old lawn furniture.
The chair was
Just-
an actual donkey. I could barely get a little cup of water to.
I rode a
sip
donkey
between
back
ears.
from Las Vegas. It was on an airplane, but I rode a donkey the whole time. All right, well, that sounds nice.
gosh.
Hey, over on Forbes.com, we have our next article. Blockstream reveals massive Bitcoin mining facilities. Fidelity is an early customer. So that means that Fidelity is basically hiring out their machines to mine Bitcoin for themselves?
Yes. Well, now
Wouldn't they just make more money mining
we make the
Bitcoin?
assumption that it's Bitcoin, but technically a mining rig like this can be used for anything.
Sure.
It can be used for
Ethereum.
processing a blockchain ledger for pretty much anything. But I think right now most of this is being used
Somebody
for
had
it.
to get buzzword bingo there, right?
It's not so much, yeah.
processing a
Not so
blockchain.
much exciting newsworthy there. I just thought the picture was really cool. Like they show what the data center looks like, and it's this massive wall of Bitcoin miners, and they've got a ton of empty space in here, which either means one, it's really hot, or two, they're planning on growing this thing. And at one point, they accounted for like 10% of all Bitcoin hashing that was going on at 6 exahashes. That's really impressive.
Some really drew 300 megawatts. That's a whole lot of power draw. I actually thought this was from a Kubrick film. It just looks like something from like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Wait,
Odyssey.
300 megawatts? Okay, yes.
Yeah,
All right, sorry.
300 megawatts.
It almost sounds like they're hiding something else. Like, can computers really pull that much power? That's the ultimate thing to when the FBI comes and raids your massive meth lab to just say, oh no, we're just mining Bitcoin. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
as
that's
you
fine.
were.
The power is the big problem on these things, and I wonder how they're overcoming that. I guess they must be more efficient somehow. But anyhow, neat things people are wasting their money on. We'll see if that actually goes anywhere. But people who think mining for Bitcoin is dead are wrong. You just need millions and millions of dollars to do it.
And customers. They have customers, apparently.
And
so.
customers, yeah. And it
so
says
maybe they're the smart
Fidelity. And I immediately thought of Fidelity Insurance,
Oh,
but
is it
that's not it. It is, and who
financial
knows? Like
services,
Fidelity
isn't it?
has so many different names. Where was the full name? They had it in here. Oh shoot! No, I can't find it. It's in the article, and I saw it and thought, wait a minute, is that the same Fidelity that I'm thinking of? And I don't think it was. Fidelity Center for Applied Technology. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. I don't know what the Fidelity Center for Applied Technology is, but it's not necessarily Fidelity as the entire organization. That would just be their R&D lab is maybe pulling a little bit. But the LinkedIn founder, Reid Hoffman, is also a customer in there. And so who knows what's going on.
It's got to be
with
some
all
big
that.
money to help foot that electric bill. So got to be some big companies there. All right, over on eweek.com, AMD posing major challenge to Intel for server leadership. And we've been chatting the past few weeks about, is AMD, poised to take over some of the issues that Intel's had. So this is showing a 15-year, year-over-year improvement on specifically on their server chips. Is that
so? AMD has never really been successful in the data center. That data centers are pretty much packed with Intel processors left and right. Intel made a few missteps last year, and one of those was that they never did get their 7-nanometer cores right. The die process for manufacturing those just didn't work out. They ended up shutting it down, and so they're still doing 10 and 14 nanometer. The other thing was that they because they had been banking on these new die processes, they had a processor shortage. And so it was kind of hard to find them. So AMD has dived in and started really getting involved in that. AMD does have 7-nanometer chips that are being used in the data centers. And what they're saying is not that they have 15% of the market, but that their sales of data center processors have increased 15% year over year.
Intel's could have been 30% for all we know.
And up until now, this year, it's 100%. So they have doubled their server business this year, and that is a big deal. And it shows that if you've been ignoring AMD because their processors suck, you were right. But they're actually kicking out some really good stuff in the data center. And AMD has done a neat job with this where they focused on gamers. And so their processors did really well with video games, but not so well with servers. And now the new EPYCs, the EPYC, their EPYC processors, actually do really well in servers. And so they're stepping in and trying to capture that. And it looks like Intel's got some real competition. So I'm curious to see how Intel responds to this, but don't be surprised to start seeing more of those AMD processors creeping up in a data center near you.
You said something earlier today, Don, not on the podcast.
I say a lot of things.
That I'd never heard, but was a very interesting piece of trivia, that the most used operating system in the world is...
Yeah, we can put Justin on the spot. Justin, do you know the most used operating system on the planet?
Would you say most installs? Is that the way you'd say it?
The most actively installed and running operating system.
I'm going to say Android.
Okay. So, no.
Oh.
Good guess, though, because think of all the phones that
all
run
the
Android.
low price phones that are all over the place. But
Yep, good
wrong.
guess. It's Minix.
Oh.
And
Minix 2 or Minix 3?
I believe it's Minix 3.
And so for the people that didn't know, like me, that is the operating system that is basically baked into the Intel chips, right?
Yes, so the Intel chips have that management engine, the one that's kind of led to some of these big warnings that are out there, and it runs Minix.
So if I'm running, High Sierra here, I'm
Doesn't
also
matter.
running
Yep,
Minix.
you are also running Minix, and so
look
it
at that.
is. And Intel has not released any information on it, so I don't know if it's Minix 2 or 3. And even the author of Minix, because that's why I brought it up, because I quoted it in a webinar I did, the author didn't know. He said he started getting a lot of emails from Intel employees asking about how this works and how that works, and so he kind of had a guess. And then he was as surprised as anybody to find out that his operating system was now the most popular in the world.
So it's like an open source.
Yes.
So
yep.
he's not seeing any money from that.
Well, the reason I was kind of surprised about that is Minix 2 was originally used as an educational tool for OS and OS development. But it apparently runs Minix 3, which I know Minix 3 kind of departed from its educational roots and was becoming more of a microkernel.
Well, hopefully he's charging for support.
I do not believe
Intel.
he is.
No,
Well, that's
I
disappointing.
don't think so. Oops.
Yeah.
My bad. All right. Over on Ars Technica, we have our next article. Uber, losing billions with a B, freezes engineering hires. Uber has been burning cash at more than $1 billion per year. And I know that they had some issues after going public, too. And posted it here. It says a second quarter operating loss of $5.4 billion. So what's the thing to cut? You cut the innovation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, apparently they'd already cut a bunch of marketing individuals also.
Oh yeah, I did read that too.
Start with marketing.
It-
That's what I always say.
Laid off 400 marketing workers, and I looked that up after seeing that, and that was a third of the marketing staff.
I thought you were going to say it was $4. This is weird. It was horribly underpaid.
That's all they say.
But I feel like they're just treading water until completely autonomous vehicles are there and they don't have to pay drivers anymore.
Tim and I. Oh, good.
They said at the current burn rate, they got 2 years. I don't know if autonomous vehicles are going to save them in 2 years.
Yeah.
Not with them running over people.
Tim and I were talking about it and how Uber, at the end of the day, is really just a phone app, right? They don't own the cars, they don't own the people. They just put a customer with a driver, and it's just a phone app. So he said, how can they be spending so much money when all they have is an app? And why would you start firing your engineers when all you have is an app? But they're they're investing all this money in autonomous driving. And that does make sense. Like if you don't have to worry about drivers and the vehicle can drive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, taking people around, you get the Johnny Cab from Total Recall, then that becomes a pretty good business model.
Yeah.
But yeah, autonomous driving is a ways off. I seriously doubt we'll have it in 2 years. Better yet, 10 years.
Well, most of the money's been going to sexual harassment lawsuits, I believe.
Oh,
It's probably at least half of that, $5.4 billion.
Got to spend somewhere. But I think this is interesting because Uber has been one of those unicorns, that is promoted right along all the other Silicon Valley companies. We've seen a massive investment. Like investors have no problem loaning money to companies like this. And for those of us who are involved in the dot-com boom back at the end of the 90s, you look at what's going on today and you're like, this is the same thing. These companies have no real value and people are dumping millions upon millions or billions of dollars into them. Unfortunately, it looks like we are on the way to recession. And this may just be the tip of the iceberg. So keep an eye out. I think a lot of these unicorns, we're going to realize the horns are just glued on and it's just a horse.
I've read about a couple of other companies where they're like, they got, $300 million in investment, but they have no effective monetization strategy. And you go, oh, I wonder how they're going to pay that back.
Yeah.
They're not.
Point of buzzword bingo clarification. When Don said autonomous, do I get automation? Same root word.
It is. And it is automated driving.
But if I said automobile, that wouldn't count.
No.
Well, the tricky thing there is I just said automation.
Oh.
Tis true. So I'm going to go ahead and
Yeah.
check that
I'm
off.
going to put a little star next to that one that I will argue that if it
I don't have
comes
any
down
of these
to
words. The words are dumb.
These words are dumb.
Reading's hard.
Hey, let's go over to The Verge now for our next article. This one's pretty interesting. The U.S. Navy will replace its touchscreen controls, with mechanical ones on its destroyers after a deadly 2017 crash between a destroyer and an oil tanker. I think that was the John McCain, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the USS John McCain. And so basically they're kind of taking a step backwards in terms of the technology to make something that gives you a little bit more redundancy, I suppose.
So, the problem was under the touchscreens, first off, they looked super cool. And they got a picture here. Everything's on a touchscreen. You can reach up and tap it. It had where you could divide the screen in half, where you had helm control on one side and then whatever your station was on the right. So, in theory, there were 4 stations on the bridge that could all take over helm control. And you could, get any of these stations to take over. So that was a really neat idea. Well, the problem they ran into was the destroyer was, sailing down the river or whatever. It was in the ocean, I
I don't
believe.
think they have sails.
And and they transferred helm control from one station to another, and they did it wrong. And so they ended up where helm control was in 2 places. And so the ship turned the wrong way and was headed for this tanker. Well, they had time to steer away, but all 4 stations were trying to take helm control, and they actually pulled all the logs, and they show where helm control went from one to the next, and it was like rotating around. So nobody knew who had control, and they crashed. And so there's a cool quote from an admiral on here where he said, this gets classified as just because you can doesn't mean you should. They said that if they had manual controls, this wouldn't have been a problem.
And I imagine even those manual controls are drive-by-wire, essentially, where it's still just the interface, but it's the fact that you can't necessarily share that duty then between multiple stations.
Well, said they had placed this computer, they had turned off like a computer-assisted help, so it was manual in the context that they were manually taking control, but then that actually led to the problem. How is going to mechanical controls, if they have the possibility of taking control from those 4 places, how is that going to alleviate if they were doing that already?
So I think the deal with the mechanical controls kind of goes back to what Peter was saying, was with mechanical, you know which controls work. And, if you're not at the helm station, you got to walk over to the right station. So there's no transferring, and they do have redundancy, but it's either this station works or that one, and that's it. So
if we had autonomous vehicles, this wouldn't have happened, is what you're saying.
They turned that off.
If
Yeah.
Uber,
They turned that part off.
if we get Uber Battleship, problem solved. New problem.
I think we have a
created.
treaty that says that we're not allowed to weaponize anything that's automated, don't we?
How does that work with drones?
Yeah.
I know they have a
there's
a
a
driver,
pilot.
but
The pilot pulls the trigger.
that's true.
So
Completely autonomous.
I don't
Make
remember
the
if it's
decision
in
for-
our NATO bylaws or there's a treaty that I'm pretty sure the U.S. is signed to that we can't weaponize anything that's automated.
But if the movement of the ship was automated, but there was still manned, like all the weapons were manned, does that count?
that wouldn't count. Yeah, that would be okay.
How did our podcast get on trying to circumvent treaties of war?
We're adjusting the rules of engagement.
We're multi-talented individuals.
All right, well, let's get us back on track then, but that is interesting. So over on Vice.com, our next article, Black Hat talk about Time AI causes uproar is deleted by the conference. And so, yeah, Black Hat and DEF CON just went on, or still going on? Are they still wrapping up?
No, they're over now.
They're over now. But, you were out there in Vegas for CompTIA's ChannelCon, but all that was going on besides Vegas, everything.
Yeah, and whenever Black Hat and DEF CON are going on, lots of cool talks come out. So I think we have our next 3 articles are all from Black Hat and DEF CON. In this case, most of the talks are security researchers that get up and present new findings, and the conference does a great job of vetting those ahead of time. They look at them, they do some peer review and make sure it's okay. But they also have some slightly controversial sponsored talks, where if you're a sponsor, you pay for the conference to happen, they let you do talks, and they don't vet them at all. Not one single bit. Just, you paid us $50,000, so yeah,
You're vetted.
Well, tell us all about Flat Earth. We'd love to hear it. And so in this case, they had a sponsored talk where the company that sponsored it, whose name I've already forgotten, brought in another person. Crown Sterling was the company that paid for it. And then they came in and had a presentation done on Time AI and quantum encryption, while using, let's see how many buzzwords we can get on this one.
We got rid of quantum on
quantum
here.
encryption using, we get the words that got them in trouble, infinite wave conjugations and quasi-prime numbers, right? And Justin, you're the one with the math degree over here. These are well-known, established facts that we work with on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, so as soon as I saw, I was like, quasi-prime. My math geek is intrigued. Not something I know what a prime number is. Quasi-prime is a real thing. It's a prime number that doesn't have any factors below a certain power of itself. So like the square root of 49 would be 7. 7 is a factor of 49, so it doesn't have any factors below that. So I think that might be a quasi-prime. Yeah, weird stuff.
Okay.
But what it does is it kind of makes those numbers be really large. But then I think that's where it gets off the rails, is it's quantum with quantum wave conjugations and quasi-primes. When I was looking up quasi-primes, this same individual is in an archive. It leads to their website. Apparently it's been flooded. That terminology has been flooded on search engines for this group of individuals.
So let's pretend for a moment, because I know, Peter, you get fired up over this stuff, but let's pretend for a moment that you know nothing about encryption and how it works and so on.
I'm turning that part of my brain off.
That part off. In the security industry, security professionals do not trust new encryption. And the general rule is a minimum of 5 years, but they usually prefer 10 years, that you cannot trust encryption until it's been field tested and proven, and then you sign off and say, all right, this is now trustworthy. And we've seen that in the past with AES and even like Triple DES and DES. They went through a significant amount of testing and then were used for decades, right, before computers advanced enough to break them or whatever. AES, there was actually a whole competition where there were several different versions. RSA did the same thing. So that stuff normally happens. With this is brand new, bleeding edge encryption that has not been tested and peer reviewed and all that. And what got people fired up is they're already selling it for use. So like governments and other agencies are starting to make use of this. And so security researchers that were in the audience for the talk started standing up and heckling and yelling out. And basically they got enough complaints at the conference that they finally deleted the talk. And so now they're trying to figure out what to do in the future. But pretty uncommon for them to cancel a talk after it's already occurred. In fact, I'm not aware of another instance of this happening, but pretty neat to see that. And also to see that the security community won't let snake oil salesmen, get out there and taint the market.
I wonder if they refunded the money.
I don't know. Although you could say, boy, do they get some publicity out of this, right?
Yeah,
so it's probably worth every dollar.
Can I turn back on the part of my brain now that
Yeah.
knows all about that?
Is that going to take
Quick
a while?
interjection.
Rebooting.
Yeah. Well, Peter gets ramped back up here. Don't know if 7 actually qualifies. I wanted to qualify. I wanted to make
He's
sure.
that whole time.
Yeah.
I was mathing over here.
Yeah.
Well, the whole time you were doing that, let's just assume for a moment that it was relevant, right? What does it matter? Like, why is that relevant for anything? Like,
I feel like those are the people that stood up in the audience like, hold up, that is absolutely wrong. That is, who else is going to be able to tell you whether it's snake oil?
That's true, I guess.
Well, there's some video of the talk here.
I get suspicious of anything that says quasi as a prefix.
Yeah, we're going to set you up with a quasi salary.
Yeah,
and
you're quasi going to have vacation.
Your homework is to watch this presentation and find out where the math is wrong.
So
Time well spent.
I looked up some other talks where they were associated with like his discovery, because he has some published papers or have pushed out some papers about the math behind this, and he gets trolled pretty hard on YouTube, and like the math people showed up and was like, this is all wrong.
The math police.
Yeah. I can't say. I've been out of the math game for a little bit. Number theory wasn't my thing. So
it's probably like comic book guy on The Simpsons. They're just like worst equation ever.
All right. Well, our next story from this same fun week in Las Vegas on Ars Technica, hack in the box, hacking into companies with warshipping. And so, first of all, that looks cool. Is that a Raspberry down there?
yeah.
And some other
It's a Raspberry Zero.
But what is warshipping? I'm not familiar with that.
All right,
term.
so a lot of attacks these days work on intercepting Wi-Fi signals, but companies are smart enough to reduce their antenna strength to keep the Wi-Fi signals in the building. So now you've got to physically get in the building to intercept Wi-Fi. Well, if you can get a receiver into a building, then you can intercept that traffic. And if it's got a transmitter, you can now exfiltrate the data out. So warshipping is not a new thing. Like in the past, people have manufactured these where you have a transmitter and receiver that are battery powered. You put them in a box and you mail them to the company. Well, the company will bring them into their mailroom.
It's almost a physical Trojan.
Yeah.
It's a Trojan.
And
horse.
I was like the Trojans.
Yeah. A large enterprise is not going to open a box the day they get it, so it might be able to sit there for at least a few hours, maybe even a full day before somebody gets around to opening it, especially if it's addressed to not the right person. It's going to kick around. Or if you know somebody's on vacation and you address it to them, then it might sit around for a week before anybody thinks to open that box. What was really cool in this example is they used such small components, the Raspberry and so on, and a solar panel to be able to stick on the outside of the box that was disguised to look like tape or something innocuous. But because they did that, they were actually able to sandwich it between cardboard. They had a picture somewhere here. They could sandwich it between cardboard and slip it into the packing material with the rest of a legitimate package. So now it would go in, and somebody might even open the box and not notice that all this stuff was in there because it was disguised as like a divider in a box.
So what's new here is just how small they can get it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they even had like the nanny cam version where they put it in stuffed animals and stuff. I guess you could give a gift, like a legitimate gift to someone. And if it's inside of there, they're like, "Oh, this is nice."
Yeah,
Just
I
set
read
it on their
something
desk.
recently about. I can't remember what the specific thing was, but it was a gift given to the from the Russians to the U.S. as a sign of peace, and it sat in the ambassador's office for 8 years before they noticed.
Yeah,
it was
it was a passive bug.
Yeah,
and
it was like a wooden like seal or something you wouldn't think that there's something inside, but the one in the picture here. Because I was thinking when you said, "Oh, it might get kicked around the office for a week if it's got the wrong address," I'm thinking, the battery's running out at this point. This one's got a solar array on top of it, so depending on what you've built this into, if you can If you can make that work, I guess it's working long term then.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, a Raspberry Pi Zero, you can get it running a couple of days on a battery, and that'll work out really well.
And the idea here is to get a beachhead, and then you're in, or
This is normally a temporary thing. So it's going to go in, it's going to intercept, and then start to exfiltrate. And you've got to be there to receive it. So you have to be like outside the building to catch the signal. It also means that it can be caught because if people are monitoring for the new signals that pop up, that's where like Pony Express, they have those new where you buy like 50 of their receivers and you plant them all over your building. And anytime a new wireless signal pops up, they receive it. And you know about it, so you can catch stuff like this. The example you were giving of the Russian gift, that was a passive receiver or transmitter. So it emitted no signals whatsoever until it was activated. It had to receive a communication on a certain frequency to turn on. So you could only detect it while it was actually in use.
Wikipedia, which we all know is
Fact.
flawless.
Yep.
Flawless. Apparently, it was the thing, the seal.
Oh, the thing. That's what they called it.
Yeah, the thing. It was considered a predecessor to RFID because you energize
thing.
Right? Yeah, the thing. Designed by Leon Theremin of the Theremin.
The musical instrument?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
That's great. That makes sense.
Which is that same kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if they were sitting around going, that's real cool sounding, but I got a idea. Listen, can we put this in a giant statue, and can we energize it from a distance so we can listen to stuff? And he's like,
yes.
Yeah.
What kind of music are you trying to make? I don't understand. Yeah. All right, well, that's fun. Cool
Dubstep.
stuff coming out of Black Cat and DEF CON. Next one over on Vice.com. These legit-looking iPhone lightning cables will hijack your computer. And looking at the cable in the photo there, I mean, that looks like the official Apple cable. And so, there's something built into probably the end where the cable plugs in that's tracking?
You know, micro components have gotten so small these days that they can insert them right into the end of the cable. And when you plug into a USB port, you can draw power off the USB port. So everything is provided for you. What they've done is they've built a very, very small computer into the connector on the lightning cable. And when you plug it in, it is actually able to then execute commands. It even has a little wireless receiver. So an attacker will actually need to be in range, but then they can send commands to your computer. And the demonstration they did was they launched a terminal and they executed a few commands. But this one's actually pretty basic. This came out of Black Hat or DEF CON, I forget which one. But it's really just keyboard and mouse. That's all it is. So when you plug it in, it just shows up as an HID device. We were talking, Justin and I were talking before the show that Daniel Lowry, our security edutainer here, he had me buy one for him for the show last year that was a lot more advanced. It looked like a USB extension cable. And because of that, I mean, you could put it anywhere. It's just an extension cable. And it actually ran a full web server and key logger. And so it would collect every keystroke the keyboard sent. And then it could SFTP it and drop it off somewhere. You could reach into it and you could actually piggyback off of it to connect to a network. Really powerful stuff. This one really just allowed you to send commands into the system. It didn't let you do key logging and so on, but it just shows that when you buy cables, especially like non-authentic cables, there's tons of Apple knockoff stuff on Amazon that you don't really know what's inside the cables. And components are so small these days that it's difficult to trust. But this is another one where the wireless on it would be something that's detectable. So if you're monitoring for rogue wireless signals on your network, then you would see this cable and know there was something that wasn't supposed to be there.
So asking for a friend, should he stop using all the USB keys that he got free at B-Sides Vegas a couple years ago?
Yeah, I mean, that's an example. I was talking, where was it? Was it our security presentation the other week about how one of the attacks that some people were doing is they would go around a conference and they would collect USB keys from the vendors and they would take them back, put malware on the keys, and then walk back into the conference and drop them back off at the tables.
Oh, wow.
And so, you're walking up to the Symantec booth and talking to the person and you grab a key, not realizing that somebody's already modified the contents on it. Like that stuff happens right now, and that's not even hardware.
Yeah, I think Daniel was talking in that webinar we did about how when he was working help desk that somebody had a bowl of them on their desk that said, well, I take this home every night, and they're just reinfecting their computers.
Mm-hmm. It's surprising how often people are like, I found this USB key plugged in. No one claimed it. Uh-huh.
Let me test it on your computer.
Yeah, let's go ahead and plug it in and see what happens.
Yeah.
Oops.
Not good stuff. Well, hey, this last article we have for today is kind of our fun one, but it's also, I think, came out of, was this DEF CON or Black Hat, where there was
It was
a
tied to one of
talk
the
given.
conferences,
But
yeah.
So this one is on Wired.com. It's great. How a null license plate landed one hacker in ticket hell. So long story short, guy decides to... it would be fun to have the vanity plate null for his car. I think his wife's car was void, so that he had null and void. And basically, chaos ensues as it sounded like he got a ticket that was not for him, but he thought, oh, maybe this was me, and it was just a parking ticket for like $35, so he decided to pay it. And then at that point, all tickets with license plate field null got assigned to him. They'd say, oh, yep, this is the right guy. And so he was getting tickets from before he even had the license plate. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's bad programming. Basically, it shouldn't matter if you have a license plate named null. That in a database, a null field is effectively an empty field, but that's different than having the text characters for NULL. On the license plate website where he applied for it, obviously it handled it properly. And they manufactured the plate, he stuck it on his car, it printed out, like everything worked properly there. The real problem here was that in the state of California, or at least in this municipality, they used a third-party contractor to process all the parking tickets. And that contractor, their systems recognized the word NULL as actually being a null value. And so after that first ticket was paid, every ticket that was missing a license plate number, if a ticket was issued and that field wasn't filled out, got applied to this guy. And ended up at one point having over like $12,000 in parking tickets and other simple non-moving violations applied to him. And then he wasn't able to update his registration because they won't let you renew your registration unless you pay off your existing tickets.
I cannot imagine the frustration of those phone calls, of the bureaucracy to deal with here. To try to say, oh, everyone calls. Well, that's not me. That wasn't me. I wasn't there.
My heart is pounding. Just like,
I'm just
I
angry.
have to. I'm trying to figure out, though, how do you write a ticket without having a license plate?
So
Maybe it was
guessing
illegible.
they have to be able to do it because, like, if a license plate, if you pull somebody over for not having a license plate,
yeah, I guess.
So you have to be able to issue a
Field
ticket
is
for
null.
that, or a missing VIN number, or not missing VIN number, but you can probably use the VIN number.
But that makes it seem like the license plate was the only thing used to look up that respective ticket. Like if I was going to query, like, show me all the tickets for this individual at this license plate, I wouldn't go, just give me the license plate. Because aren't license plate numbers recycled?
They are, yeah. And he even said a lot of the tickets showed as being like a Honda or different Mercedes.
That's what caught me in this thing too. And I don't know if you saw this part, but the guy said, so he called and said, hey, I drive an Infiniti. This shows a Honda. And they said, well, I see that there. Okay, well, let me look into it. He called the third party. Then when he goes back in and logs in and sees the tickets, they had changed where it said Honda to Infiniti. And so they started updating their things to be like, oh, no, that was you. But he's got the paper ticket that says Honda. And on the computer system, it shows Infiniti.
Yeah, which just makes you feel good that they're modifying
Yeah.
records like that.
Yeah.
My favorite, though, is the awesome quote in here.
Yes.
Where is it? Oh, here it is. This actually did come out of a DEF CON talk, but a journalist previously attached to Wired had written similar articles in the past. The quote is basically, he had it coming, says Christopher Null, a person who has written about this before. His actual last name is Null, N-U-L-L, and apparently he has been dealing with that his whole life, running into problems where he just can't sign up on various websites and can't look up his account and so on. He would know. He says, all you ever get is errors and crashes and headaches.
I feel like he would make a great, like, security consultant. But he has, like, that niche. Like, he's looking for, like, bad SQL. And he's like, yeah, I see it right there because I can't sign up because my name's jacked.
So what would be another license plate that would that could pose big problems?
Semicolon
or dash.
Oh, dash would be a good
Yeah,
one.
I think actually if you do, I want a space dash 1 + 1.
You can't do special characters though, right?
Yeah,
haven't
not in
seen
most
that.
states.
Yeah.
Well, you can do hyphens in Florida, right?
Yeah, because that's when I say dash, that's how your first part and your second part are.
I don't think
Aren't
there's
there?
hyphens.
Well, so Florida, on a normal Florida plate, it is space, but I thought you could do a dash.
Maybe so.
No?
Maybe so.
Maybe it's other states. I don't know.
This shows how much
But you're
we
right,
try to
like-
stay away from the
It's
DMV.
not my area of
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah.
But with just letters, it would be hard to find another word. Like, null is one
Yeah.
that's used in databases pretty frequently. After that, it would be hard to find another word that created an action like that. I mean, maybe like break.
Maybe.
But as we were talking about this too, you pointed out that if this happens in this system, it shows that it might be susceptible to SQL injection.
Oh yeah. So if they're handling the word null as an actual null value, that means they are not sanitizing input, right? They're not. The type is set wrong. It's not a character type.
Oops.
And so if that works, SQL injection would be like Daniel would be so happy to.
Yeah.
It would be like the easiest thing for him to break into, because that means that you can inject SQL commands into that field.
So what you're telling me is we should print out a bunch of flyers with XKCD's little Bobby tables and start mailing it to these people.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There you go.
The little Bobby Tables
Gotta
one.
get the word
Have you
across.
seen that one?
I have not.
No.
I've seen XKCD.
So for our listening, well, maybe I'll look it up here if you explain it for our listening
So
audience.
XKCD is a comic strip. It's about tech and grad school and all this fun stuff. And there's one where a school calls a mom and they go, yeah, we seem to have a problem. Is your son named Bobby? And then it's like semicolon dash dash. But actually, there's the comic. That's going to do a better
Yeah,
justice.
but with the audio, folks.
I was
yeah.
trying to find it from XKCD, not from just some random internet site. But yeah, so this is it. Here.
Okay, yeah, it says we're having computer problems. Oh, did we break something? Did you really name your son Robert, quote, parentheses, semicolon, drop table students, semicolon, dash dash? Oh, yes, little Bobby Tables, we call him. Well, we've lost all the students' records. I hope you're happy. And I hope you've learned to sanitize your database inputs.
There you go. That would be a great license plate.
So in terms of like, if you're entering in on a database, the moment it sees that apostrophe, parentheses, semicolon, that ends that command and starts the next command.
Okay.
And so their next command is drop table students. They're guessing the table is called
Yeah.
students, and drop means delete. So
Oops.
that's what happens when you don't sanitize. And if it's taking the word null and treating it as an actual null value, they're not sanitizing, and you can absolutely stick commands in there.
Little Johnny Tables. All right. Well, that lesson learned there. Hey, we have an interview to get to, and so Don, we're going to kick you out of the studio.
Sweet.
Justin, you want to move over there? We'll grab Cherokee. We'll do that here in a break. But we're going to bring in Sara Haggard all the way from Seattle, Washington, who is the founder and CEO of Tribute. It is a mentorship app, and we're going to find all about what led her to start that app and why mentorship is important, and maybe I'll get a mentor out of it. Who knows? So let's take a quick break. We're going to come back with that interview right after this here on Technado.
Are you a career changer or a budding tech pro who's looking to start their career in IT? I'm Wes Bryan, and along with my fellow IT Pro TV edutainer Cherokee Boos, we've just shot a new show just for you. Each week, we'll dive into topics to help you launch your career in tech. Watch how to get started in IT on YouTube now. Just head to youtube.com/IT Pro TV to watch, and look for new episodes every Saturday at 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
All right, welcome back to Technado, and it's time for our interview segment. And you can see we've made some changes in the room here. We've gotten rid of Don, and Justin moved over, and we've added Cherokee.
I've
here.
moved in.
How you doing, Cherokee?
Good. How are you?
Good, and we've added you to this today because you kind of helped us set up this interview. So how did this come about?
Okay, so I'm a part of Microsoft's Diversity in Tech, and there's a particular group that I was just kind of introducing myself in, which is the Women IT Pros. Kathy Moya has set that up, and I think it's a fantastic just space for women to get together and share experiences. And she actually recommended the Tribute app to me. And so I download this app, and I'm going through looking for mentorship because as you know, Peter, we've done a YouTube video on mentorship. And this is something that I feel strongly about. And here I am, and I'm looking at this app, and it's almost like Tinder, but for mentorships. And I'm like, this is so amazing. Who made this? And I start looking into it. And then that's how we found Sara. So
Well,
yeah.
let's go ahead and bring Sara in then and see what her reaction is to that
I know.
Tinder for mentorship thing. I feel like it's going to be an
I
issue.
know.
But so this is Sara Haggard, and she is the founder and CEO of Tribute. Sara, how you doing today?
Awesome. I'm doing lovely. Thank you guys for having me on the program.
No problem. And so we'll talk more about the app in a minute, but I am curious your thoughts on that comparison.
Yes, I like to say the Bumble of corporate mentorship versus Tinder, just because we are female founded, we are female forward, inclusive for all. But I kind of have a love-hate relationship with that reference.
So sorry.
Yeah. we say like
That won't be the last one from Cherokee.
Listen,
I'm pretty sure.
yes, I'm sorry. I do offend people quite often, but
it's just get it out of the way at the beginning. That's good.
I don't know many dating site apps to compare things to, or like I don't know what Bumble is either. Sorry, but
So a Bumble is kind of the women's answer to Tinder in that the woman has to message first.
What I think is amazing is you and I knew what Bumble is, and you didn't.
Well, I'm a user. I have been turned down many times on multiple platforms, so that's why I'm familiar with that. But I feel like we're getting off track. So Sara, let's start with before we get into Tribute itself. So, kind of what led you to where you are today? Where'd you get your start in tech and find out that mentorship was something important to you?
Yep. Yeah, so I got my start in tech almost 11 years ago at Microsoft, and it kind of happened honestly by accident. I, had started my career majoring in the social sciences, thinking that I would go into social work or some type of, humanities work. Ended up doing that work for a little while and realizing it's just a really, really tough space to be in. And so I decided I wanted to go into business and kind of switched my focus to get a business major, along with an anthropology major, and then I ended up moving to Seattle. And about a few weeks before I moved to Seattle, I had a family friend that said, hey, why don't you come consult with our team? And my first client ended up being Microsoft. And from there, ended up working in tech for over a decade.
And so did you have a mentor along the way, or did you have mentees along the way, or what made you notice that as something that was very important?
Yeah. I did have a mentor that I met very early on in my Microsoft career. Her name is Eileen, and she has drastically changed the course of my life. And so I think I've not only experienced the benefit of mentorship, but another unique thing happened to me as a woman, specifically in tech. Often I would be identified as a high potential employee within Microsoft and then kind of put into a mentorship program where I would be matched with somebody. And then sort of, left to sort of fend for our own. And I found through that experience and several of those experiences that, company matching programs really aren't that effective. I got matched with people that I didn't really have a connection with. And then you had this kind of awkward dance of who reaches out first, what do we talk about, what are we doing here? And for me, I think the epiphany came to me when I realized just how important mentorship is, and yet how archaic and sort of dark ages, companies are still approaching mentorship where it's, pen and paper and spreadsheets and trying to create these perfect matches. It just didn't click for me. And so I thought, there's got to be a way that technology can help us solve this problem of making mentors and mentorship more accessible. But like the, Bumble for corporate mentorship reference, it should feel natural and easy and should lead with storytelling as a means to connect so that you can create that connection and inspiration.
These are all great tips. I'm learning about Bumble now, so I should make it more genuine. But
oh, brother.
I mean, hopefully this stuff works. I downloaded the app yesterday and played with it a little bit. But you were kind of explaining to me a little bit about the relationship that it still has kind of with Microsoft through that diversity programs. Can you kind of explain that a little bit? Because I'm sure anyone that's looking into the app now will kind of see those things as well. So it'd be nice to understand.
Yeah, so I actually left Microsoft in April of this year formally to pursue Tribute full time, but Microsoft is our first client with Tribute, and so they, have this wonderful diversity and tech community. Shauna Chi leads that community. She's an amazing, innovative leader, and she realized very quickly that this community's number one ask was mentorship, and so they created a form for people to fill out. I think the community itself is almost 5,000 people strong worldwide across 80 different countries. And 2,000 people showed up and signed up to be matched with a mentor. And I think she quickly realized, this is something that we are going to need to have more scalable than us manually matching everybody. And so that's when she contacted me, shared the vision for Tribute. She's like, I love it. I want to be your first customer. I want to pilot this thing and see how it works. And so that was in March of this year, and we just launched July 1 with that community.
So do you have to be involved with Microsoft, or if someone at home wants to find out more about this app and get into it, are they able to do that as well?
They are, as long as you join Microsoft's diversity and tech community first, right? Because Tribute is today exclusively available to that community.
Which is a community that's open, though, to anyone to
join
in.
Yep.
So I did that with my
So
Microsoft account yesterday. So are you on the app now?
Yeah, I am. I haven't fully filled it out because I'm actually working on another program that with Kathy, and it's going to be a pro bono program for women and in training. So when we get more details, I'll roll that information out. But I'm going to have my hands full for a while. But yeah, that'll be fun.
A mentor would help with that. Maybe.
You know what I thought was really cool, though? It wasn't, of course, I'm a Microsoft fan, and I have been. It wasn't just Microsoft employees. There were a lot of different people from other Fortune 100 companies, I noticed, and not completely isolated to just tech, careers as well. There were even some in marketing, Peter.
Yeah, I saw that, too. So, so the question I have for you is I understand why it's important to find a mentor to help you, figure out the path to take and pitfalls to avoid and things like that. What is the push or the motivation for the mentor to go on there and seek out mentees? Like, is that just hey, I want to give back because this is something that helped me, or is that tougher to find those people to put on there?
That's interesting. I get that question a lot, and our tagline with Tribute is mentorship redefined, specifically because we don't, and Cherokee, you've been on the app, so you see this, but we don't create camps of mentors and mentees, right? So you join, you tell your story, you get to share your life experiences, and people get to find you by those shared life experiences, or they get to read your story and be inspired by you. So today we have almost 300 people that are on the platform sharing their stories. We've got some incredible stories on the platform. I just love swiping through and reading them. And the funny thing is that now we've kind of created this pay it forward community where everybody's joining, telling their story and saying, hey, if I can be useful, reach out. I even had a couple people who I personally know reach out to me and say, I haven't had anybody ask me to mentor them yet. So we're almost like creating this community where you get to show up, share your story, and that story and life experiences is what qualifies you to be a mentor. So I don't really think about it in those terms to answer the question directly.
Okay, and I get, this is kind of like around the water cooler, or you bump into somebody and be like, hey, that's, storytelling. Where I'm from, storytelling is very important. However, I've never been in a very large corporate setting where they've had that like mentorship mapping thing. Just to get a taste of how this is different, can you just give us like your experience on why that was not successful for you? Mm-hmm. I mean, as far as I know, you didn't really connect with them, but how does that work?
Yeah, I think today the way mentorship programs typically work is, and every company kind of does it differently. But the simplest explanation is you typically find a group of people who want to be mentored. Then you have to go recruit your mentors. Typically you want to do the matching with at least 2 levels of difference between the people. But I see a lot of companies going to their senior level, top level execs, recruiting them to be mentors, skipping many layers to the, incoming audience, and then trying to match, these really disparate groups of people. And I think, there's a lot of great work out there of, matching on intention and goals and all of those things. I think it's just, for me, it didn't work because I felt as if I was leading with my false self of, okay, here's my resume, here are my credentials, here are my skills, here are my goals, but never really having a chance to introduce, who I am to that potential mentor, or the other way around. I'll also say that I think that a lot of companies view mentorship as a one-way street, right? So the mentor is, providing value to the mentee, and it's not a reciprocal relationship. And you get that. You feel that, with your mentor. If you just get assigned and matched with somebody, you feel like, ooh, if you're the mentee, like, okay, I hope they like me. And so part of Tribute's experience of leading with storytelling, and it's fascinating reading the stories that people are putting on the in their profiles, is to sort of humanize and sort of take that false self off first. Humanize you, create that spark or that inspiration that someone who's reading your profile reads and goes, wow, you're really interesting. I want to get to know you more. That's the experience we designed to hopefully be different and hopefully be more enjoyable for all involved, including the mentors.
And Sarah, with Microsoft having that heavy involvement, one of the things individuals have to do to maintain, let's say, an MVP status, that particular award, they have different activities that they can participate in to maintain that level or that award. So in a sense, it's not just a one-way partnership there, that the mentor is also getting something out of it. So it really is a really mutually beneficial relationship that we see there. And I'm sure some other companies have something like that, or maybe they're just doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. But I think it's really cool that they have that option. And not only that, but you give these 30-day trial periods, so to speak, right? So they can see how well their I don't want to use, is the synergy a buzzword on our buzzword bingo here?
It used to be,
and no one
ever said it.
Oh,
and
okay.
the first time you're on here, you're like, synergy.
But if it doesn't work out, then they can, just not extend that relationship, or at least you give the option to do that a few times if things are going really well, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Each mentorship, to clarify, each mentorship engagement is a 30-day long engagement. You can extend it up to 90 days. That's the length of the, ideal mentorship that we see, but we give you that natural out if maybe the connection's not there, or maybe you got what you were looking for and you want to, take that spot and give it to somebody else who might be in need. But that's another observation that I think a lot of listeners will probably relate to, is this feeling that when you get matched with a mentor, that you have to have this lifetime commitment or a lifetime relationship with somebody to get mentored by them. And I just kind of fundamentally think that's not true. And I think our current, I don't know if I tie it to being a millennial or, a generational thing, but I think that there's a value around efficiency as well, that we want to just, be able to get in, get out, and go on and help somebody else.
Well, I think as our careers mature and we're at different stages in our life, then those mentorships look different for each of those stages. So it's not necessarily tied to one specific person, but just, different mentors for different areas of your career.
Just out of curiosity, is this something that you've thought about expanding? Obviously, you're just getting things up and going, but I had a horrible experience in grad school where I picked an advisor based on you got to pick somebody right now. And I wish I'd have had something like this to be like, oh, I don't want to work with them, or we don't really mesh, because it made my grad school experience absolutely horrible. Is this something you're looking to maybe try in other arenas, such as like higher education, maybe postgraduate work, or even maybe like postdoctorate medical training?
Yep. Yeah, no, I think there's a huge opportunity in higher ed. And I think, right now we're focusing on Fortune 500 companies, kind of going company by company to stand up Tribute with the vision of having an open network that companies could choose to put their employees on that open network or choose to keep them kind of within their own walls. But I see a tremendous opportunity, not just for higher ed, but to connect those two. So if you think about recruiting and the cost of recruiting today, I could see a world where Microsoft goes, hey, we want college graduate students or those in graduate school to be participating in our mentorship program, because that's a way to learn, get to know them and lift them up and actually hire them into the company. So I think there's a connection point there that we'll see down the road.
So question, when I went in and I set up my profile just to kind of check the app out, but then I got to thinking, I was like, having a mentor would be cool and someone to help me, take those next steps in my career. But I've also taken a lot of steps in my career where I could help someone as well. Do you have people on there that are kind of doing both, or is that something you have to, choose your path and go left or right when you get into the app?
We do ask you when you set up your profile what you're looking for. If you're there to mentor, if you're there to find a mentee, or both, or not sure. We capture that information just for our own edification. But beyond that, no, we're seeing a fluid, exchange of people coming in, getting asked for mentorship, asking other people. So there aren't any rules. You can come in and each person gets 5 slots to take on 5 mentees at a time. That's the max that we have today. And so, we're seeing a lot of fluidity with people acting as both.
What about the other way? So you said you could have 5 mentees. Do you pick that one mentor and you get that trial period to find out if it's a match and then potentially move on? Or do you have a couple going at the same time while you're figuring out where you're going to end up?
Yeah, I just actually completed. I have 5 active mentees on the platform right now. I just completed my first 2, so that's given me, two more spots that I can take on additional mentees. If you're looking for a mentor, you can find me on Tribute. But likewise, I wouldn't be able to have more than 5 mentors as well.
That would just be selfish.
Make sure.
Who has time for all of that?
For some reason, my mind's going, I just have like all these like dots and lines drawn between each other.
Like, who gave me that advice? I don't even remember.
Just out of curiosity, what are some of the, I don't know, projects or things that are worked on, like for you, anything you can tell us about, I helped this person with X, just to get an idea of like what you're hoping to accomplish? Yeah,
absolutely. I think one of the longer I've gone, or the more experience I've had mentoring others. So I, about 3 years ago, maybe now, had an opportunity to go back to my alma mater college and start guest lecturing on, in the business school on product innovation and management, and have through that experience mentored several women, 2 of who've actually moved from Wisconsin and Iowa to Seattle to start their careers here, which, I helped them make that transition from college to career, which has been enormously satisfying. But, within the app, with the mentees that I've met so far and the people that have reached out to me, it's really fascinating, because what I realize about mentorship is, and I realized it the other day, is you don't always have to be exchanging a hard skill set or piece of knowledge. I think another really interesting benefit of mentorship is, being able to activate your mentor's network for things, right? So there's a woman on the platform that I met, or who asked me to mentor her. She works in technical recruiting, not my field, was looking to make a move in that career. And so even though I don't have any, immediate knowledge to tell her how to navigate the world of recruiting, I was able to activate my network, find a woman who is in that field, and connect those 2. And so now, they're connected off doing their thing. And I think that's why, and I'm kind of bouncing all over here, but I think that's why sometimes mentors, especially senior women or men in companies, feel like if they don't know their mentee, that, hey, I'm not going to activate my network if I don't know you, right? Or if I don't know what you're about or what you're looking for. On the flip side, I hear lots of mentees who go, well, I don't want my mentor to feel like I'm using them, right? So there's this kind of like unsaid thing that activation of one's network, each other's networks, is something that is part of mentorship. And I do feel like when you get to know somebody's story, when you get to know what they're about, that you're just that much more inspired to want to activate your network to help them in any way you can. And it might not be because you have the direct experience that they're looking for.
So I think a lot of our listeners and viewers might be interested in something like this. Or either we hear from people that are just getting started in tech and kind of making that transition from a different career, or a lot of CIOs and people like that maybe have been in the industry for a while. So if they're interested in going ahead and getting the Tribute app, are we on Apple and Android? Or did they make you make a Microsoft one for the Microsoft App Store? Is that...
We're not in the Azure Marketplace yet, but we are going there. Yes, we're available on the Android Google Play Store and then the Apple App Store. We're live today, and if folks who are listening want to join, I'm seeing a lot of people who are just starting their careers in IT or who are shifting from other industries. And in addition, people who have been in the industry for a long time that are raising their hand and offering their help. So I think if you are listening and you are one of those people, this would be a perfect place for you to go find a mentor.
So I can't get it on my Zune yet. But if do people need to go to the website first to sign up for the Diversity Network, or can you kind of go through the app to do that? What's the best way?
You can go through the app, but I would definitely recommend heading over to aka.ms/community mentors. Use an Outlook account to sign up for the diversity and tech community, and then you take that credential and you log into the app that way, and it's just a simpler process.
Sounds good. And if you want to learn more about the app as well, you can go to tributementorship.com and find everything you want at the site there. And do you promise that when you get or when you have your IPO or you're bought by Facebook or someone that you'll
Tinder.
come back bought by Tinder? Who I think is owned by like Match too. It's like I found out once. I'm like, oh, they're all the same company.
Yeah, it's like two conglomerate companies.
Yeah, there's one company out there
It's got
that's
the corner market on this.
controlling all of our love lives. But so if I found will you come back on the podcast? Was my question when you've made it huge? Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Well, thank you too, and
yeah.
congratulations too, because I know. Like,
amazing.
You're not just making the app, that's a leap, but to then leave the steady job and do it full time, that's a big commitment, and probably because of help from your mentors
and finding time to be a mentor, all
and finding time
all at the same
up
time.
to 5 people.
Up to 5 people. That's crazy.
That's nuts. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us today, and we had a lot of fun with this, and hopefully, like I said, we'll be able to talk to you again in the future. And thank you all of you for watching, but stay tuned because we have more Technado coming up right after this. Hey IT pros, let IT Pro TV add food, drinks, and fun to your next meetup. Sysadmins, security groups, network admins, and more, tell us about your meetup and we may send you a meetup kit to make your meeting extra special. Your kit contains a gift card for refreshments, t-shirts, and stickers to give away, plus access codes for all of your group members to try IT Pro TV for free. Request a meetup sponsorship kit for your group today. Visit www.itpro.tv/events. All right, welcome back to Technado, and welcome back, Don. Good to have you back.
It's a great interview, guys.
Thank you.
We try.
Maybe you'll go back and listen to this one.
Maybe.
Touche. But thank you to Sara for coming on and telling us about that, and definitely a cool app that you can download. So we'll be sure to check that out. Hey, want to let you know about a couple of things going on. First of all, we just had a webinar today, but you can go and watch the archive version of that very soon. It was last-minute disaster prep, 6 action steps to minimize the impact, talking about hurricanes, tornadoes, all the kinds of things that can affect your data. But we have the next one coming up as well, also things that can affect your data. Ransomware. Is your company doing enough? How to avoid costly exposure and payouts. That's Thursday, August 29th at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So that'll be Don and Daniel doing that one. And I don't know if is Daniel going to put ransomware on your machine to test this out?
Well, that's the goal, right? So
Perfect.
well, more and more cities these days are becoming really paranoid because these government networks are getting hit with ransomware left and right. So how do you know you've done everything to prepare? There's so many different ways this stuff gets in. So it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, not for the victims, but for us.
It'll be fun
as the outside viewers. That'll be nice. Also, so I should mention the URL for that. So if you want to sign up for that, itpro.tv/webinars is where you can go to sign up for the upcoming webinars and also see the archive of all of those past ones. Also want to let you know, if you are interested in learning more about IT Pro TV, you can head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado. You can fill out a form there and request a demo for the business portal and see how all that works behind the scenes, or you can go ahead and start a free trial for your personal account and get 30% off with the promo code Technado30. So check that out at go.itpro.tv/Technado. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Did anybody get bingo?
No,
I'm not even close.
You're
I had like a smattering.
Yeah, I got a lot of X's on the card here, but nothing that quite lined up.
Yeah, I stink at this game. We got to come up with a new
Well, the problem is we ask you, and you tell us about these
I
articles.
say all the words.
And we're like, say that again? Yeah, what was that article?
well-
There's a few words that always like mess us up. Synergy used to be the one.
Yeah, we got rid of that.
And
What I need is the
Actionable.
Chinese government to create a cryptocurrency powered by machine learning that supports 5G networks.
Yeah.
And if I had
If
that,
a robot ran
this would
that.
be the easiest game. It would absolutely be robotic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be.
Oh.
So
No, still missing words. All right. Well, so you want us to take ROI out?
Have we said ROI?
I don't
have we
think
not gotten a
it
return on
happened
investment on ROI on the
Yeah,
card?
I think it might have happened once. We can pull that out. We've
What
got
about actionable?
words to spare.
I figured we would say actionable more than we do.
Yeah, we're not those people.
Yeah, I guess not.
If we're not the people that say synergy, we're not going to say action.
We don't actually do what we propose. We just propose it.
There you go. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And I propose we'll do this again next week. So we will see you then right here on Technado.